Bit of kit, this tune, I like it. Be sharp, say now. Patrick Topping. Dun. Dun 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 dun. Okay, then preview. After years of tagging preview in Instagram stories, we finally got the connection. Jake Hall then went on my profile and started liking it. Fingers crossed we can gain some traction.
Yeah, I don't know.
GG got a new handle.
A new handle.
You enjoying it?
Yeah.
It's a lovely handle.
Lovely handle.
Okay, we are in for posterior. This is the last posterior. Had a very nice week last week in Centre Park. So you saw the footage, 194, about 6. So try and go for the 200 key today. Feels like it's there. As you know, when you're warming up, you can feel it. What we do is you put the 25s instead of the 20s, just so we, in my mind psychologically, it's like, right, I've got 100 on the bar, but it's 110. So with Reese today, we've got Gigi somewhere filming for the member site, and that video will be a slightly more educational walkthrough, so we'll take you through each exercises, showing you why we do certain things.
Good, brace hard. Brace hard. Yep. Good, let's go. Come on now. Brace hard and go. Brace hard and go. Good. Come on now. Come on now. Brace hard and go. Hold up. Come on. Good. Good. Same speed. Keep that tempo now. Keep that tempo. Good and try. Let's go. Easy. Up. Up. Come on in. Come on in. Drive. Drive. Good. Brace and go. Brace and go. Up. Come on in. Brace and go. And up.
Feels good to be in the 200 key club. It really does. What a magnificent 12 weeks it's been. You know, I've reignited a new love for bodybuilding, and thanks to having Josh and Joe, I'm incredibly grateful for having alongside me for the past 12 weeks. I think it's all put us in a very solid driving position for a hopefully successful season next year on stage. I was always debating, I have been debating whether or not I want to jump back on stage, but the way in which the last 12 weeks has gone, and the people that are now in my circle, having Callum, who checked in with me last week and said, look, there's no doubt I'll get you diced. There's no question I will get you shredded. What the task and what the goal is now is to pack on enough tissue to ensure that we don't have a repeat and get outsized. And Callum is pushing, I think, for 2 more 12-week training blocks, which is another 6 months of gaining, which for me is a bit like, you know, I'm trying to push for 1 more 12-week block. I think with the amount of room that we have left with anabolics and food, I think what can be done in 12 weeks to get me up to the sort of scale weight that's needed to try and challenge the upper end of my weight category for 2 bros, I think is doable. You know, we'll go through everything in this video. It's a slightly different video. It's more of a sit down. I was going to go and say, grab a Terry's chocolate orange coffee. That's next week. I think they're releasing that, a big purple and an after 8. Will I be filming myself drinking them? I damn sure will be. So stay tuned for that. But we're going to go through how this 12-week block has gone with regard to body composition changes, scale weight, nutrition, training, and also anabolics. So get yourself comfortable. What we'll do is we'll first go through body composition changes. So on the screen now is week number 3. This was at about 94 kilo, I believe. I started this process at 93 kilos. I'm now 102, currently in a deload. But the first image on the screen was week 3 at 94.1. The second image was week 8 at 97.2. And the final image was week 12, so last week, at 102.4 kilos. So week 1 start weight 93, week 12 weight 102.4, 9.4 kilo gain. So and as you can see from the images and feedback from Callum as well, And I looked at some shots when we was in Mykonos, and my body composition was a lot less tighter compared to what it is now. You know, my midsection for 102.4, as Cal said, is very good compared to previous off seasons. My heaviest weight I've ever been is 103, so we're like 0.6 behind the heaviest I've ever been. With a solid 12-week run, I really do think we can push up to the sort of 108s. Brightman said the other day, no doubt you can do it. So body composition, very, very comfortable. I'm very happy. Usually I get to this stage of an off season, I'm like, oh, I get the itch. I want to start mini cutting. You know, someone DM'd Cal and said, get Tom out of that constant mini cut cycle. I feel very comfortable, and I'm very excited to keep on pushing forward. So quite a significant change. 9.4 game, and feedback, biofeedback, blood pressure, blood glucose has been very good as well. You know, usually when you get yourself into a position where you are gaining quite a large amount of weight week in, week out, it can negatively impact and impede on blood pressure, but we've done a very good job at managing that. I am getting my bloods done at the end of this week, just to give a little bit of feedback on lipids, on cholesterol, on when my testosterone and estrogen's out, for example, and we'll go through them in the next video. But the way in which Callum has us checking in now is I can pull up my whole nutrition. So what we'll do is we'll cover week 1 in terms of what training day and rest day food was like, then we can compare that to week number 12. So we opened up with 200 grams of protein, 325 grams of carbs, and 60 grams of fat. That was on a training day, so not a huge amount at all. Going into this gaining phase off the back of a really poor lockdown, it is always going to be tricky. You know, going into a gaining phase where body composition isn't as tight as you'd like it, there's always that sort of red flag of am I creeping up fat mass too much here? But we've been incredibly tight and well structured when it comes down to nutrition. What Callum has done, he never sets me meal plans. I choose my own food. But what I've simply done that differs from previous off seasons is from week 1 to 12, I've had the same structure and same sort of routine with food. And what's happened when Callum does increase carbs is I'll just add food to that meal. So take meal number 2, for example, oven chips, fish and salad. If there's a carbohydrate increase, I'll simply add to my oven chips, or I'll simply add a bit more pasta to my dinner, or maybe add in an additional Rice Krispies square bar to my post-workout meal. So that was training day food. Rest day food, I was on 200 protein, 200 carb, and 80 fat. The biggest difference between this particular off season and previous is that I'm hungry. I've never been hungry before at like week 8. Usually I'm like, my appetite's poor. My relationship with food is really bad. But this time, and as you can tell, 200 grams of protein, 200 grams of carbs on a rest day, you can imagine I'm hungry. I'm backloading food on a rest day, which is like, for me, unheard of on an off season. So what we'll do is we'll compare we won't go through each week. We'll go through week 1 to 12. Week number 12 PDF nutrition block saw my training day food, 200 protein kept the same, carbs were 475 and fat was at 60. So the only change from week 1 to 12 was my carbs, and that went up by 150 grams. So 150 grams of carbs increase over 12 weeks is quite a relatively small amount compared to what you'd see in previous gaining phases. My rest day food, 200 protein, so that kept the same. Carbs went up to 300, so an additional 100 grams of carbs to get me to that 300. And fat went up to 100, so an additional 20 grams of fat. So all in all, not a huge amount of changes when it came down to nutrition. And I think the biggest driving factor for me this 12-week block was training. And as you've seen from the footage on the members site, on Joe's channel, on Josh's channel, the intensity in each session, we are beating each other up. You know, I first fully understood what training to failure was like last year when I trained with Callum and Luke. This time round with the boys, it's a whole nother level. It is a whole different ball game. We're all friends, but we're all pushing each other. We're all competing against each other. You know, Josh and Joe going against each other on the press, me on the Cybex. It's been phenomenal. It's been absolutely phenomenal. So I'm not saying it's solely down to that, but I think a large percentage of that is finally understanding what true training's like. And then over the 12 weeks, just doing the basics. You know, you'll be surprised what doing the simple basics does to your physique. Eating, not missing meals, sleeping well, recovering well, and training hard. You know, you do that day in, day out, change is going to be made. There's only to get tricky with nutrition. You know, I'm not against IFYM. And you see me be quite pro about it before. I think it's a fantastic way for people to have a good relationship with food. But when it's just kept simple, you know, when I wake up and I know what meal 1, 2, 3, and 4 is, and I know what time I'm training, and I know what time I'm going to bed, and I know what time I'm having deep tissue on a rest day. Once you collate all those together, changes will be made, and they have been made. You know, it's been phenomenal. So that was just us touching on nutrition. We've talked about body composition changes and scale weight. In terms of training, again, nothing has changed for the 12 weeks. Usually my blocks are probably about an 8-week block and I have to deload. But our ability to ensure that recovery has been superb has allowed us to stay in this training block for longer. You know, we've gone from an 8-week training block where I deload after to a 12-week training block, just because I've been so on top of recovery, so on top of sleep, which has been phenomenal. So the actual structure of my training, this is what I love. When I have a 7-day block and it doesn't kind of go into another rotation, I much prefer that. I hate it when it kind of rolls into the following week. I really dislike that. It screws with my sort of psyche a little bit. So when I know like Monday to Sunday I'm training on this and resting on this, it sits with me really nicely. And Cal took that on board. So we've got 2 push sessions, push A, push B, and we've got arms. So Monday is push A. Monday is push A and arms. Tuesday is my posterior, so that is my hamstrings and back. We are making a change to that going into next block, but we'll go through that in another video. Wednesday is my rest day. Thursday we're back in for push B. Friday I've got my lower, and Saturday I've got a pull session, and Sunday off. So the sessions in which we were getting with the boys were Monday, Thursday and Friday. I called on a client, Reese or Chloe, for example, on my posterior sessions. And then I'd usually go at my pull session on my own on a Saturday. You know, it's quite a nice environment to be at Crayford on a Saturday, and then Sunday I'd rest. So that was my training split. And with my push sessions, as you saw, push Monday I think was the Cybex incline, and Thursday was the shoulder. We had the hack movement on the Friday, and I had my RDL on a Tuesday. And I think it's really important when you are in a training block to try and pull one exercise from each session and really marry yourself to that. And then I think that it just puts you in such a strong psychological position going into each session, going like, right, I've got my RDL today. I must get that 180, you know, or I've got to improve my rep scheme. I've got my hack on Friday. I used to sort of take the piss out of people that used to get nervous before lifts. I used to think, well, like, what are you getting, you know, almost like virtue signaling a little bit. This block, Thursday night, there were times where I think, fuck, I've got to go and do 5.5 plates on the Cybex. You know, Monday night, I'm like, this week I was like, Monday, shit, I've got to go and pull 200 key for 6 on Tuesday, and like a 180 back off for 10 to 12. It does get, you know, you get into that mindset, and I think it's a fantastic mindset to get in. So, you know, in hindsight, and which is, you know, you should always hold your hands up and admit that you're wrong. There are times when I sort of didn't really respect training. That's just taken a whole different change. So we've covered body composition changes, scale weight, nutrition. We've gone through training. And now in terms of anabolics, which again, it mirrors nutrition. I've been on 200 milligrams of testosterone, and I've been on 200 milligrams of Primo. That was up to a couple of weeks ago to 300 milligrams. So for the very large chunk, for a very large percentage of the last 12 weeks, I was running 200 mg test and 200 mg Primo. In terms of what I've run in the past before in previous off seasons, where I've bumped test up and I've ran NPP and I've ran orals alongside it, it's such a bigger difference. It really is. You know, the anabolic nature, the environment you can create by increasing that Primo whilst keeping testosterone the same, it is wonderful, and it's only put us in a stronger position because, like I said, we've got so much more room to play with going into the next 12-week block. Whereas if we ran a sort of stereotypical NPP test and oral cycle, by week 12 at this point it's like, right, now we need to cycle off. Blood work isn't that good. And what Callum has taught a lot of us is to get out of that mindset that we must look at a blast like, okay, we're going into a blast now of anabolics. The next 12 weeks we're going to have to sort of almost negatively impact health. for the sake of gaining tissue. If we can put ourselves in a position where we are still gaining tissue strength whilst on the lowest possible dose and being smart with what we're using, like Primo, for example, it just means we can stay in that phase for a lot longer. So yeah, it's been mad. It's been one of the most successful sort of 12 weeks to date. We are currently in a deload. I'm going to go into how to deload in terms of nutritional changes, training in the next video, but I'm very much in need of it. You know, psychologically a little bit broken towards the end of this block. It was getting harder and harder. The last 4 days have been superb. This is the first time I've gone into a deload where I'm like, right, I needed that. You know, I really needed that. And waking up when I want, getting a good 9-10 hours a night, sleeping, going for lunch with Joe, getting massage. We're just ridding of as much fatigue that we've built up with the last 12 weeks, so we can go into the next training block, clear mind, clear body, and push on to that goal. So that's pretty much it for this 12 weeks. You know, it's been relatively simple with nutrition and anabolics in training. Just doing, as Mr. James Holland said, doing the necessary. Any questions at all about this current blast or anything to do with food or training, then please drop a comment and I will get back to you as soon as possible. But apart from that, I will leave it there and I will see you in the next video. We will go through how to deload. Thank you, good night, and much love. Yes.